Hello! In this episode, we're going to talk about how to set long-term socioeconomic goals for after the corona pandemic, especially for the Eastern Caribbean or the Caribbean islands. Hey, welcome back to the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we turn data into analysis so that you can create the right policy. If this is the first time here, welcome. My name is Ronnie Calmera and I have been doing these shows for already a lot of time. And my goal is to check in with you. How are you doing with the corona? Is everything okay? Maybe you are in the Eastern Caribbean, in the Caribbean. Tell me in the chat. How are you doing? Are you coping with that? Are you setting goals for the Eastern Caribbean, for your country, for your island? Or are you only thinking about what is happening right now? In this episode, I want to share with you my tips on how to set long-term socioeconomic goals for the Eastern Caribbean, for after the corona pandemic. So, before I begin, I have something for you. I have a question. I have a question for you, and the question is like this. Let me share my screen. So, I have a question for you. I have a question. So, I have a question for you, and the question is like this. Coins. Imagine there is 100 people on an island. 100 people? No, sorry. Imagine there are 1,000 people on an island, and you go to that island and you give each person 1,000 coins. So in total, there are 1 million coins. Now you leave the island, and then after exactly 365 days, you return back to the island and you do a research about the coins. Okay? What will you find? Choose a number and tell me below your comment why you chose that answer. In about 1 week, I will tell you my answer. So after 365 days, what will you find? 1. Everybody has 1,000 coins. 2. 200 people got 800 coins. And 800 people got 200,000 coins. Or number 3, 200 people got 200,000 coins and 800 people got 800,000 coins. Or number 4, 10 people got 800,000 coins and 990 people got 200,000 coins. Or number 5, that's the last one, more than 1 million coins. So let me know your choice, 1 or 5, and why you think this is the case. And you got 1 week to answer that question. So now let me tell you about today's topic, which is the goals. The goals, when you are setting goals, you have to set goals because without goals you cannot move. Without goals for your island, you cannot move. Take for instance St. Lucia. You might have a GDP contraction right now in St. Lucia, but if you don't have a target growth for GDP, for the total economy on the long term, then you cannot do anything. If you are just thinking about the corona right now and you are not preparing for the goal after the corona, what is your target GDP, then you cannot manage that. You cannot put your resources as a private sector person or as a policy advisor or as an investor. You cannot take action. Okay, so it's very important. The real GDP growth, for instance, here we put 5% GDP growth on average. Let me tell you, today I read the outlook of the IMF, and they say that countries in the world, some have a GDP contraction of 7%. The GDP is going to decrease, the total economy is going to decrease with 7%. Europe, Latin America, North America, China, Japan, all those countries. China is the only one who has a positive economic figure, and the rest are down, way down. Not only 3% down, but 7% down. Okay, so it is very important to have a target. What is the target? Now let me show you some other dashboard. How do you want to look at it? For instance, investments. This is investments. These are investments. So what is your target investments in the government? What is the policymakers? What is the target investment growth? For instance, 5% growth. You want 5% growth internal investments, and you want 5% growth maybe also from external investments, people coming in. If you don't have that target, you will not get it. The GDP target, this is the target of the gross domestic product in a number. Here we have Curacao, which is the guilder, but you could have these targets in Eastern Caribbean dollars. What is the target of the GDP? This target is, of course, the total amount, and you have to deflate this total amount by the inflation, but also inflation target. The GDP per capita, let me move that one. The GDP per capita here, very important. That is the total average income per population. What is your GDP per capita? For instance, for Curacao, this is about currently something less than let me see, 37. In 2020 it is about 38,000 guilders divided by 1.7, and you get the dollars. You need to have a GDP capita per average, because otherwise you don't have a course where you don't have a target. Okay, do you want your people to become rich, wealthier on average? Do you want $100,000? Or are you just saying, okay, everything is okay? Everything, no matter what. Okay? So, the number of cruise tourists. The number of cruise tourists. How many cruise tourists do you want? How many stay-over tourists do you want? How many stay-over tourists? And stay-overnights also. Stay-overnights. So, the tourists are coming there and they stay on average 7 days or 9 days. What is your target? How many stay overnights does your hotel need to have? We have that other target, which is, for instance, the number of unemployed. How many unemployed do you want to have ultimately after this corona pandemic? If you don't have a target, you don't have a goal, you don't have anything, you are just creating policy out in the air. So this framework, this economic framework that I'm showing you, I've created this framework for 10 islands in the Eastern Caribbean, and we are still going. Maybe Aruba is the next one, or maybe British Virgin Island is the next one, or maybe Barbados is the next one. But we have created for all the islands of the Eastern Caribbean and the 2 islands of the Dutch Caribbean. So if you are there, we have this framework with data and analysis, and you can also simulate the economy. So the next point, purchasing power. Right now, purchasing power of the people is going down the drain. And why is that? Because they don't have income. Purchasing power means income, either through wages, to public wages, private wages, or you can also have social benefits. Then you have an income. And the other side of purchasing power is, of course, the inflation. If the inflation goes up, if the prices go up, your purchasing power goes down. So what is your target? Do you want everybody to have 2% net real purchasing power? after inflation? What is the policy in your island? Tell me below. What is the inflation? What's your target for inflation? Your central bank, what is the target of inflation? 2%? Is central bank trying to keep 2%, or are they okay with 1%? Generally, the world wants to have a 2% inflation target, because when there is deflation, the price is going down, and the prices are going down first. When there is deflation, then the central bank don't want that. They don't actually want that. So unemployment rate. I already said, what is your target unemployment rate? Okay? How many people? This unemployment rate is the total of unemployed divided by the labor force. Maybe even the population, because based on a target for your population, you can build infrastructure. You can build your IT infrastructure. You can build government services. How many government services do we need with this amount of population? You see, we are trying to get the targets right, because once you have the targets, then you can have policy, create a policy. So first you started the data. You see here the data from the past. Then you have a target. Once you have a target, you know you are trying to create the right policies to get that data, to get a target. So data analysis to reach the right policy to reach that target. I hope you understand. If you have not questions, tell me. Employment by enterprise is very important, because with robotics, the robots are taking over certain jobs. There will be less jobs. This is not talking about unemployment, about jobs, the amount of jobs created. Maybe your economy needs to create a couple of jobs, and we're not talking about all type of jobs, general jobs. And then later on you can specify it. What kind of jobs do you want? Do you want all your jobs in tourism, or you want some jobs in refinery? You want some jobs in renewable energy sectors, solar, wind, water, or do you want water power, or do you want some jobs in the blockchain? I talked with a business partner of me, and we calculated that, for instance, for Curacao, we might need 5,000 new blockchain jobs at a certain level, between $50,000 and $120,000 each job. You see, we are trying to focus here, because when you focus, you are going to help your island move forward. So the debt is a very important target. Right now, for instance, for Aruba reached a debt, and it's a debt as a GDP target. So we will see those both together. Aruba reached a debt GDP target. They didn't have a target. They have a target of 60%. That's the general target of the world, debt as a percentage of GDP. But Aruba went beyond that, 90%, and immediately, boom, because they crossed that target, the Fitch downgraded Aruban economy, downgraded their bonds. That has all kind of consequences. I will not go into that, but it has consequences on the fiscal, on the financial accounts, on the fiscal sector, on the capital accounts, on the balance of payments. So you see, when you don't have targets, or when you go beyond the certain level of targets, you will get into problems. So you see here a lot of targets, stay over targets, and in this dashboard, this is the most advanced dashboard of my framework, my macroeconomic framework. You see all this. Now, I want to talk to you about, we have another 7 minutes, exports of non-tourism. This is the case where you are seeing islands like Aruba, which are very, very focused on tourism, and now the tourism is gone. So now Aruba doesn't have other areas, other foreign reserves generating export sectors. Curacao has international financial services, has refinery, has the transportation sector through air and through sea, and We are also building the ICT sector, but Aruba has mostly the tourism sector. St. Martin has tourism, which is cruise and stay over. There are about 1.7 million cruise tourists going to St. Martin. I think that's the biggest, the highest amount of cruise tourists per population. So you need to have your targets, but St. Martin is reaching 2 million and they cannot go above the 2 million. So St. Martin has another challenge. You see, depending on which island you are, the particular things in your island, we can move first on one of the targets, but then we have to tweak it. So I want to be talking with you guys, all you guys from the Eastern Caribbean, whether you are working in the government, whether you are working in the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economic Development, Ministry of Sustainable Development, Ministry, whether you are working in the Ministry of Tourism, or whether you are working as a labor union, whether you are in a Central Caribbean Development Bank, OASAS, CARICOM, if you are a statistician. This is important, guys. So non-tourism means that you want to have a target for the non-tourism sectors. Like I said, it could be agriculture, it could be the mining sector, it could be the gold sector, for instance, for Suriname, it could be all other non-tourism sectors. It could be blockchain. Blockchain, watch my episodes about the blockchain. It's going to be, those episodes are below and they are very important. So the exports share as GDP. This is the discussion that you want to have, the exports instead of local absorption, because the local absorption is the government and the private sector, consumption, etc., against the exports and the imports. So is your tourism, is your export sector a great percentage of GDP? That means that you are outwardly focused. There are many islands. Curacao is one of them. We have some great export sectors, but we have been internally focused. Now, once you are internally focused, that means that you cannot grow, because small islands like you are living on, they have limited population, limited markets, etc. That's why I am focusing with these channels, with these Facebook Lives, on bringing you value outside Curacao, because my market is outside Curacao, also in Curacao, but outside Curacao, I have unlimited potential, and you have also unlimited potential. So the exports as percentage of GDP, you need to watch this because this is very important. Let's move back to the imports. The imports, it is very important to have an import target, especially because many islands have a high import compared to their export, so they have a current account deficit. Export minus imports, they have a high current account deficit, and that means that your monetary, your currency is under pressure, because when you have a huge current account deficit, that means that money is flowing away, because the imports, money going out, is higher than the exports, money coming in. So you need to have a target in there. So you see, I'm not saying specific what kind of sectors, etc. I'm giving you general macroeconomic insights about the big numbers. And if you want to know more about the big numbers, stay till the end, because I'm going to tell you something about the 54 key variables that you need to be able to grab as soon as possible for your island, so that you can construct all these variables here. I have cracked the code, and I'm going to share the code with you if you stay till the end. So the depth of GDP, we already talked about. This is a very, very important variable. Even the exports, how fast is the export growing or decreasing? Because you want to monitor what the target is of the export growth. I have done some simulations that the target for export growth need to be 16% real export growth after for certain islands to reach a better economic growth, a higher economic growth. So while the tourism bureau, if you're the tourism bureau, you are at the tourism bureau and you are happy with 2% growth of tourists, stay over tourists, cruise tourists, maybe that is great, but that is not enough. So we have discussions, for instance, that we want to help tourism bureaus to get more funding, more capital funding, more marketing spending dollars from their governments. But then the tourism bureau needs to understand and needs to build a business case telling the government how much exports am I going to grow. Because you can't just receive money and then having a bad performance. You want this kind of analysis so that you can put your money that you requested for marketing purposes in a general framework. Grenada is building a tourism plan right now, and these simulations can also be used within that tourism plan. Other islands in the world, if you want to build your tourism plan, you need to have these general numbers. So the current account is very important. We don't have too many minutes left. The current account is a percentage of the GDP. I said that is 5%. That's the norm. That's very important to have that. And when you see the current account having a bigger deficit, then you will see the foreign reserves decrease. So you also want to target for that. So now I want to have the number of months covered needs to be 3, and everything above is great. We have external trade, etc. Now let me just give you one small summary. Let me go back. Let me give you just one small summary about some of the variables that are talking about the structure of your economy. Because right now with the coronavirus, we need to transform our economies. It's not just spending some money and helping people support getting their jobs, because that's going to work on the short term, but as keeping some companies open by supporting them. The government can do that, but if the governments don't structurally change their economies, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, Anguilla, Dominica, Montserrat, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, Curacao, St. Martin, Aruba. Let me continue. If you don't structurally change your economy, transform your economy, move to the next level as a government, as a private sector, then you will not survive this depression. I'm not going to bring bad news here, but I just wanted to tell you like it is, because here in the Data Analysis Policy Show, we are not about politics, we are about data analysis and policy based on figures. So I'm going to show you the list, because stay with me. This is the list of the targets, and I want to stress with you some of the targets that are really, really important next to what I already shown. And here you see the percentage that I just put in for a certain economy, but here you see the target. You can change this yourself and have these discussions. And remember, we have these economic models for all the 8 islands of the Eastern Caribbean, and the two islands of Curacao and St. Martin of the Dutch Caribbean, and we are building further, and we want to partner with everybody who wants to create the islands, this economic framework for their own island in the Caribbean. We are focusing on the Caribbean right now, but we are quickly moving to the rest of the world also. So you want to have something for labor productivity. You want to have a target for labor productivity, because labor productivity tells you how much you need to be productive for each employee, and you need to influence this. Labor productivity. The labor productivity change. Not only the value, but the change. If you go to Singapore, you will see that Singapore has a high labor productivity in money terms, and also as a target, as a growth. Maybe right now they have some problems. The wage rate, you need to have a target for the wage rate, because there needs to be communication between the labor unions and the employees. You need to have a target. Even productivity minus wage cost, because that's the profitability of your country, and it has to do with the return on investments. Real labor. So these are more structural targets we're talking about. Most of the people are not talking about these in the discussion. So you want to invite your parliament, your politicians, your ministers to set a stage about what do you want to have as a target. Let me show you the rate of return. Even the rate of return is a target. If your economy is not producing on average 8%, let me just tell you something here, 8% real rate of return per year, then you have real problem, because why would I invest in your economy if I could invest that money into stocks and other derivatives on the stock exchange and getting more than 8%? You see, that's why in your economy, and this is especially for banks are looking at return on investments. Investors, foreign investors, are looking at return on investment, and you need to deliver them return on investments. So now, if you want to stay connected with me, now I want you to listen to the following. Hey, stay connected with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Okay, so I'm finishing, and what I want to do is I want you to grab the guide and the cheat sheet. It has the 54 variables that you need to grab to get as soon as possible for your island in the Eastern Caribbean, or in the Caribbean, so that you can create the same framework that I have used you. The secret is that once you have these 54 variables, you don't have to look anymore. Once you have these 54 variables, you can monitor those, and those variables are the only one you need to get, so that you can create a framework like this, analytic framework. So don't be like the rest, looking all over the place without knowing what to watch. Be the next level. Join my community. When you click on www.calmera.net/waitlist, you will be waiting also, but not long, for my programs. Joining the waitlist is free. You will get that guide. Join it, because maybe I will drop that guide and then it's over. So as long as I'm giving you that guide, give me your name, drop that, and wait for beautiful things to come, because the Caribbean, the Dutch Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, we are wonderful people. From policy, from paradise, I bring you this show every week, 3 times a week. On Monday, 4 o'clock, on Wednesday, 4 o'clock, and on Friday. Have a nice weekend, And then I see you next time, same place. Okay? See you. Bye.